Hi, I'm Carl Tannenbaum, Chief Economist for Northern Trust. My neighbor is a die caster, one of those heavy industries that has largely moved to low-cost locations during the last generation. It's a great tribute to his leadership that his company has remained and thrived in the United States. The pandemic took a steep toll on his business, though, and I became reluctant to ask him how things were going. But he recently volunteered that his order book was thicker than ever. One of the main drivers has been a desire from American manufacturers to find providers that aren't too far away. This trend towards reshoring may be one of the more powerful economic themes in the years ahead. Global value chains have been honed to a fine edge in recent decades. Just-in-time production techniques and sophisticated logistics combine to produce components and finished products at very low costs. Deliveries were carefully choreographed to maximize efficiency. But ever since the financial crisis of 2008, trade frictions have been on the rise. Struggling to recover from that episode, nations began to take a less favorable view of global commerce and its impact on domestic workers and firms. Questions about the evenness of playing fields led to a substantial increase in tariffs, quotas, and trade disputes. Sourcing from overseas became more problematic and expensive. The pandemic added momentum to the trend away from globalization. Supply chains have been in terrible disarray since 2020, and the concentration of global production in just a handful of providers has become more apparent. Long supply lines are not only vulnerable, but they are also not carbon friendly. And resilience has risen to rival cost as companies consider where to place operations. The war in Ukraine has added another ingredient to the mix. Extensive sanctions were implemented against Russia in the wake of their invasion, essentially closing the country to sourcing. While Russia is not a major cog in the machinery of global trade, more significant players like China could find themselves sanctioned under certain circumstances. The term friendshoring describes the desire of companies to limit exposure to those kinds of events. Reshoring is not easy in some cases and not possible in others. But multinational companies are making more mentions of this in their public statements, and the Reshoring Initiative estimates that 350,000 jobs will return to the United States from overseas this year. That means much more business for domestic providers like my neighbor, and I hope that means that he will underwrite next year's block party. And that's the view from here.